Most people would refer to that as simply tying the thread onto the hook. Some people refer to it as a jam knot. In fact, it's not a knot because if you release pressure, it's just going to fall right off. It doesn't hold itself as a knot does. In fact, it's a hitch. So we'll call it a jam hitch. We're going to wind on back. We're going to hold this stub up to represent, just to be a spot to slide the thread into adjacent winds. Proceed on back onto our hook as you would typically do when you're tying on. Come in with our scissors and slice that off. Now let's say that we're going to tie a material on. Let's say that this might be a woolly bugger tail, or we're putting on a trailing shuck onto a fly. And what we'll do is go ahead and tie this in. The problem is with these ends up here that we want to secure down all the way up to here, if we tie on back here like this, let me reverse my thread a little bit so it doesn't kick forward. As we tie this on, we come over, we can secure it just fine, but guess what happens? It just squirrels all over the place. It's not a good way to tie that material on. The better way would be to wind our thread back to the front. Now you can do that if you have, as you can see the sheen there, you can do that with fairly quickly with flat thread winds and get back up to the front. Then you have to gather it back together again, so that means you have to get to about here and put some twists in it, then come on back. It's a waste of time. Or even worse, if you have not removed twist and you have clockwise twist, because every time you're winding around this way, you're putting a clockwise twist, you can have all kinds of lumps and bumps in there. Or one other way you can approach it, which takes a lot of time, flatten your thread and very carefully make your winds all the way back up to the front. It's a big waste of time. Once you're finally there, then of course, yes, you can take that material and yes, you can tie it in securely and it doesn't squirrel around you and everything works out reasonably fine. But you know what? A better part of valor might be instead to reverse your winds on your jam hitch. Let's do a reverse jam hitch. Let me get rid of some of this waste here that's just squirreled up on me. And what we'll do is, now, well, I'll show you a way that you could do it. You could wind back down over itself like this and then come back forward, but now you got a lump and bump right here and it's not really that secure anyway. Why not instead take, now before this hand moved up here, we're going to move this hand down here this time. This is a reverse. So we'll reverse what we move. We're going to take this thread and loop it around the eye of the hook. So again, we've just taken it underneath, brought it over the top of the eye of the hook toward you. Now we position it where we want to be. We're going to wind over it with 2 or 3 winds, but be careful. If you let up your thread pressure here, it's going to fall off because you've only crossed it with 1 wind of thread. So let's try it again. Position it where you want it to be, then go 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 winds. Simply throw this little stub over the front, grab onto it. Once you get a hold of it, stretch it toward the eye a little bit. Now you've got it locked in place. Well, now you got the problem with this little stump, and it's going to wind on around too unless you're careful. How you solve that problem, if you want to keep that stump on the side right next to you, you simply pull your pressure of your thread right here toward you. So as you wind on around, this is the majority of your pressure. That material simply stays put right next to the shank of the hook. Come in here, cut off your little stub. Now let's take our materials. We'll trim these butts off a little bit more square. You take your thread. I'm going to counterspin my bobbin holder so that the thread will fall right back into my fingers, right over the top of the material. I can wind right on back. Now I've built a thread foundation with less bulk, which is so crucial on small flies when you don't want a lot of bulk. And you have got the foundation that you wanted. You've secured your material. You don't have any stray strands of consequence in your way. It just makes more sense to me to use a reverse jam hitch when it's appropriate. And this is an occasion when it is.